The loudest person in the room is almost never the most powerful one. I learned that late. Too late, if I'm honest. By the time I understood it, I had already spent 20 years trying to be heard, raising my voice in rooms where the people who mattered weren't listening, performing strength I hadn't yet earned, chasing the kind of recognition that felt urgent and turned out to be worthless. And all the while, there were men and women around me. Quieter people, slower people, people who never seemed to need the room to know their name, who were building something I couldn't see yet, something real. This is not a video about being quiet for its own sake. It is not about passivity, about shrinking, about letting the world run over you with a polite smile. This is about the only kind of winning that doesn't eventually hollow you out, the kind that builds from the inside, the kind that holds when everything else shakes. Stay with me. I've been where you are, and I have something to tell you that I wish someone had said to me 40 years ago. The deliberate pace of memory. When I was 32 years old, I worked alongside a man named Conrad. We were in the same industry, roughly the same position, roughly the same circumstances, but we were nothing alike. I was relentless. I pushed. I networked fiercely, spoke in every meeting whether I had something worth saying or not, made sure my name was attached to every visible project. I needed people to know I was there. I needed to feel like I was moving, even when the movement was mostly noise. Conrad was different. He arrived early and left without ceremony. He spoke rarely in meetings, but when he did, the room went still. Not because he raised his voice, but because what he said was so clearly right that there was nothing to add. He didn't angle for credit. He didn't manage his image. He just worked, deeply, consistently, without performance. I pitied him, privately. I thought he was naive. I thought he didn't understand how the game was played. I thought ambition required noise. 15 years later, I looked around and found that Conrad had built something quietly extraordinary. The respect of people who mattered. A body of work that spoke entirely for itself. A peace that I recognized, painfully, that I had never managed to find. And after all the noise, all the movement, all the performance of ambition, I was exactly where I'd started. Louder, but no further forward, and considerably more tired. The comfortable story is over. Here is the truth I've been working up to. Most of what you call ambition is anxiety wearing a productive disguise. The urgency you feel, the need to be seen, to be validated, to prove something, to measure yourself against others, to perform progress where real progress is slow or absent. That urgency is not drive. It is not discipline. It is not vision. It is fear. Fear that if you stop performing, people will see what's underneath. Fear that your worth is not intrinsic but earned, constantly, and can be revoked. Fear that quiet means invisible. That invisible means irrelevant. That irrelevant means the thing you most dread. That perhaps you were never as exceptional as you needed to believe. I'm not saying this to wound you. I'm saying it because I spent 30 years running from that fear. And I never once outran it. Not by working harder. Not by achieving more. Not by being louder. The fear did not dissolve when I won. It only grew larger. Because now there was more to lose. The only thing that finally quieted it had nothing to do with achievement. I'll tell you what it was. But first, I need you to understand why the noise never works. Like a man explaining something he took decades to understand. Here is what I have come to understand about the psychology of quiet winning. And I want you to really sit with this because it runs counter to nearly everything you have been taught. There are two sources of energy that drive human effort. The first is external. It is the energy of proving, comparing, performing. It burns hot and fast. It can produce remarkable things in short periods. but it is borrowed energy. It depends on conditions outside of you, on how others see you, on whether you are winning the comparison, on whether the audience is watching. Remove the audience and the energy collapses. The second source is internal. It is slower to ignite. It produces less theater. It does not make for dramatic stories of overnight transformation or burning ambition. But it is your own energy, renewable, independent. It runs in the dark, when no one is watching, when there is no applause and no comparison to win. It is what you feel when you do something because it is genuinely worth doing, not because it will be seen. The people who win quietly have learned, usually through failure, to run on their own energy instead of borrowed fuel. This is not a gift they were born with. It is something they built, often painfully, often after years of exhausting themselves, chasing the applause that never satisfied. The shift from external to internal is the most important psychological transition available to a human being. It is also the quietest. No one will notice it happening. That is precisely the point. Something is being given here. The moment that changed everything for me happened in a hospital waiting room. I was 57 years old. My father was dying in a room down the hall, and I was sitting with a paper cup of cold coffee and the first real silence I'd experienced in years. No phone, no meetings, no performance of any kind required. Just me, and a question that arrived without warning. If no one ever found out about anything you have done, if every achievement were wiped from public record, what would remain that was actually worth something? I stayed with that question for a long time, and what came back was very small. Much smaller than my resume, much quieter than my reputation. A few conversations where I had told the truth when it cost me something. A decision I had made in private that no one knew about and no one would. The time I had stayed with someone who was struggling, not because it was visible or useful, but because they needed a person to stay. Small things, invisible things, things that had never made the noise, and yet they were the only things in the room with any real weight. That was the turning point. Not a decision I announced, not a transformation I performed. Just a quiet, private shift in what I was building toward. From that day, I began asking different questions. Not, how will this be seen? But, is this worth doing? Not, what will this get me? But, who does this make me? Not, am I ahead? But, am I true? A craftsman sharing the tools of a trade. What does winning quietly actually look like? Not as a philosophy, but as a practice. Here is what I have learned. Not from books, from decades of getting it wrong and slowly, imperfectly, getting it less wrong. Shift 1. Stop measuring yourself against other people. I know how obvious that sounds, and I know how almost impossible it is in practice. Because the comparison is constant, and it is not always conscious. It happens in a glance at someone's life and a quiet subtraction from your own. The reason comparison is so corrosive is not that it shows you something false. It is that it measures the wrong dimension. It measures the visible. The visible is almost never the truth of a life. What you see of someone else's life is the surface they have chosen to show. What you feel of your own is everything. The doubt, the cost, the gaps between who you are and who you intended to be. You cannot win a race you are not running. You can only walk your own road and ask, at the end of the day, whether you walked it honestly. Find one metric, one internal metric, and let that be your measure. Everything else is noise that belongs to other people's stories. Build in private. Reveal only what is finished. There is a particular danger in sharing your intentions before they have become results. It releases the pressure that was driving you. The brain receives the announcement of the thing as partial completion of the thing, and the energy dissipates. But there is something deeper than strategy here. The quiet builder develops a different relationship to their work. They are not seeking validation from outside, which means the work is not shaped by the anticipation of the audience. It is shaped by what it actually needs to be. Most of the best work I have ever seen was made in private, by people who were not thinking about how it would be received. They were thinking about whether it was right. Build in the dark, the light will find it when it's ready, and what it illuminates will be stronger for having been made without it. Let your behavior be your announcement. One of the most exhausting things a person can do is manage their reputation consciously. The constant work of presenting, of framing, of making sure the right people see the right things at the right time. Reputation managed is reputation borrowed. It has to be maintained continuously. It is rented, never owned. Character is different. Character is the sum of what you do when no one is watching. It accumulates over years without effort, without management. And when people finally do observe it, not because it was staged, but because it simply emerged, it carries a weight that no announcement could match. You do not need to tell people who you are. Become who you are, deeply and consistently, and they will see it in ways that no self-description could produce. Shift 4. Make peace with the pace. Real growth is slow, not because it has to be, but because anything built at depth takes time to set. The craftsman who rushes the joint makes something that looks finished and falls apart. The one who is patient
makes something that lasts. The impatience you feel, the sense that you are behind, that others are faster, that the world is moving and you are standing still. That impatience is one of the great lies of modern life. You are not behind. There is no schedule. There is only the question of whether what you are building is being built correctly. Slow your hands. Do the thing in front of you properly. The next thing will come when this one is done well enough to support it. A tree that grows in a storm grows quickly, but its roots are shallow. The tree that grows in stillness takes decades and holds its ground in weather that destroys the others. Protect your energy for what actually matters. There is a finite amount of true effort available in a life. Not in the sense of hours, but in the sense of depth. The number of things you can pursue with real commitment, real focus, real presence is far smaller than ambition suggests. The quiet winner has made choices about what deserves the full weight of their attention and what can be released without guilt. They have learned to say no to many good things in order to say yes to a few real ones. This is not about laziness. It is about the honest accounting of a finite life. Your energy spent on what does not matter is energy stolen from what does. Guard your depth the way you would guard anything irreplaceable, because it is, and because most of the world will spend its time trying to redirect it toward things that serve them, not you. Time and regret. I am old enough now to know what I wish I'd known, and that is a strange thing to carry, because the knowledge arrived through the living. You cannot shortcut it. You cannot borrow it. You can only hear it and hope it lands somewhere useful. Here is what I know about time, which I did not understand when I had more of it. Time does not reward the loudest version of you, it reveals the truest one. The years pass and the noise fades, and what remains is not the reputation you managed, but the character that accumulated in the quiet. The decisions you made when no one was watching. The way you treated people who could do nothing for you. The work you finished even when finishing it was hard and invisible and brought no reward. Regret, in my experience, does not come from the risk that failed. It comes from the risk never taken. From the version of yourself you caught glimpses of but never fully became. From the quiet voice you were too busy performing to hear. I've sat with men and women in the last chapters of their lives, and I have never heard one of them say, "I wish I'd been louder. I wish I'd worked harder to manage how I appeared. I wish I'd spent more time on things that looked impressive." What they say is, "I wish I'd been truer, sooner. I wish I'd stopped performing and started building before so much of the time was gone." You still have time, not unlimited, but enough. Enough if you start now to build something that matters, something that lasts, something that does not require an audience to be real. The end of a very long, honest evening. Nothing performed, everything meant. I want to leave you with what I should have told myself at 30. You do not need to win the room. You need to win your own respect. And those are not the same thing. They have almost nothing to do with each other. The room changes. The audience shifts. What they wanted from you yesterday is not what they want today, and by the time you have given it, they have moved on to wanting something else. But your own respect, the kind that comes from knowing you did what you said you would, that you built what was worth building, that you were honest when honesty was expensive, that is portable. It travels with you. It does not diminish when the room empties. Win quietly, not because the world doesn't notice, but because you have discovered that the only winning worth having is the kind you can look at alone, in a quiet room with no one watching, and feel at peace with what you find. That is the victory. That is the only one that was ever worth all the effort. Begin, quietly, deeply, without announcement. Build the thing that is worth building. Become the person who could build it. Let the work speak when you no longer need it to. The quietest victories are the ones that are entirely your own. Unstoppable mind.